Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. It's a feeling now. Hit 'em high, hit 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
That's Arcana Kings with Here We Go. This is the Piffles podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks for joining us here this week. And thanks for joining us wherever you listen to your favorite listen on your favorite podcast platform, watching on YouTube, watching on SaskTel, Max TV on demand. We always appreciate that. As always, you got me. I'm Alex.
I'm Steve.
And I think kids are just bags of disease. And my daughter got me sick again, so I might be hacking up a lung here on mute. So I will get through here because I need to ask Luke about his favorite pizza in the world.
Oh, I heard things get pretty heated when you talk pizza. So it's been a while since we had a really good food segment on this show. Maybe a couple of years since we had a really good food fight. We usually save that for the Ubers in Winnipeg. So we'll see how it goes. Piffles podcast is brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. We're also proud to be sponsored by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty, Churchill Brewing Company, and District 306 Regina's Tactical Laser Tag Experience. We set it up last week. We're going to have Riders color analyst Luc Mullinder here on the show this week, talking Riders, talking the offseason. And I said I got to ask him about Kiwana Jones. We're going to get to that. Let's do it now. Let's get to the opening kickoff. We're happy to have joining us this week 2007 Grey Cup champion, current Riders radio color analyst on 620 CKRM, Luc Mullinder. Luc, thanks for your time. How's the offseason going so far?
Oh man, you know what? It's funny you say that because I've got a real job, right? And whenever the bye week or the off season comes up, folks always kind of approach me and say, "Oh well, what do you got planned for the bye week?" or "What do you got planned for the off season?" Well, I'm going to work on Monday, right? So you know what? It's been fun to watch the off season, specifically with Saskatchewan. I think that I've got really sort of a high bar set for them this year, and I think that they've been doing some good things in free agency. So it's been nice to see the league, and as you guys know, right, this is kind of where not just where the Riders take shape. Everybody's sort of forming, their camp plan at the moment. So it's been cool.
Well, since you led right into the free agency talk, let's talk about how J.O. did. Do you prefer what he did, staying pat, touching up where need be, or do you like the Ed Hervey, I'm buying everybody, you guys try to keep up with me?
Well, Ed Hervey had to buy everybody, right? Edmonton was in a completely different situation. They've got a new head coach, so that comes with obviously new ways to look at potential culture for your organization. There were some massive gaps there, on the field. So if anybody was going to be buying heading into free agency, you knew it was going to be the Elk. And I think that you'd much rather prefer J.O.'s situation. Guys, I've said this a couple times on whatever platform I've been. The Riders are the only team that haven't gone through a front office or a major coaching restructure. And when it comes to the ability to take your front office, your coaching staff, and more importantly, re-sign the key players in your core, again, a team that went to the West Final, you would really sort of set that bar at, hey, you should probably get back there, and there I think there's a high chance that they represent the West in the Grey Cup. Again, you don't win championships on paper, right, fellas? But I would take the Saskatchewan Rough Rider sort of journey this offseason over any other team, when it came to what their needs were in free agency.
Now, you're a defensive lineman, so we have to ask about the big boys in the middle right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
On this show, we've gushed about Micah Johnson, Mike Rose, Charbel DeBeer, Caleb Sanders. What are, for the average fan watching the game, what are these guys doing in the middle that is, something that maybe we don't see that's helping them excel on the field?
Well, every one of those guys has a relentless motor, and I know that that's an easy thing. A lot of people say that about certain people, but it matters in the context of what your outside pass rushers are doing. When you have guys like Mike Rose and Micah Johnson, and Charbel DeBeer is getting much better at this as well, guys, right? When you have folks or defensive tackles that can actually pressure in the middle, it prevents the quarterback from stepping into the pocket, right? You know, you look at Tom Brady of the New England Patriots, and you look at some of the best games he's ever played, and the most sort of the ones that folks have looked back on, you know, in Tampa Bay or the comeback in Atlanta. And one of the things that's synonymous with those clips is Tom Brady's ability to step up into the pocket and throw the football and make a clean throw. And when you have Mike Rose and Micah Johnson, and you're unable to step up into the pocket and you've got to scramble, not only does scrambling move you off your launch point, it also puts you in a position where your offensive linemen don't know where you are anymore, right? In a playbook, your offensive linemen are told, okay, we're gonna do even if we're gonna do slide pro. So we're gonna go from the right side of the field, we're gonna go into the middle of the left side of the field, and our quarterback is gonna be right behind the center as always. Well, if you're forced to react to pressure from the edge, but you also can't move up into the pocket and make a throw, you've got to go down into the side. Now your offensive linemen don't know where you are, and that's where you get your holding calls, right? Because now they're seeing the guy that they're facing in a one-on-one situation. All of a sudden, he's going to the right, for instance, and you're like, well, this is okay. I better react, and I better, for some. And then you're potentially opening up yourself to those holding calls that are obviously a big deal in the Canadian Football League and in football in general. So just the physicality that Micah Johnson plays with, I'm so glad that you guys allowed guys like that, because a lot of times the Micah Johnsons, the Mike Roses, the Charbels, they go relatively unnoticed. But if you look back to the to either the CFL or NFL, I mean, defensive tackles that can rush the passer and really put the quarterback in a bind as far as his throwing time and his launch point. Those are the teams that are going to be successful in the real critical moments of a game.
Well, and how do you not laud a guy like Micah Johnson who can also flip over and play offensive line and do it at a pretty decent clip for over half of a game?
Well, you're looking at a 42-man roster, right, fellas? And you're right, Steve. You have those needs sometimes, and you don't want to be in that situation. But the nice thing, and I think that eventually football comes down to just being a tough SOB, especially when you're in the trenches. And a guy like Micah Johnson is set up to have success as an emergency O-line, because you don't have to worry about the physical part when it comes to Micah Johnson, right? Like, he's going to put his helmet on someone. He's going to punch someone in the chest. You don't have to worry about it. With him, it's more like, oh, okay, well, in this protection, just take the guy that's shading you to the left, right? The offensive lineman can talk you into your assignment there. But if you're worried about the physical level, then you sit there and you're like, oh, man, hey, keep your pads low. Remember that, right? Remember your stance, things like that. That's where you're going to have the challenges. So Micah is a guy who you never have to worry about the physical aspect of football, right? And that helps you when you're especially in the trenches.
Okay, in the trenches, who was the strongest guy that you went up against?
Up against? Who's and I went up against him, and he was a teammate, Wayne Smith. Yeah. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but those kegs under the bars? Well, Wayne's got 2 kegs for a chest. And his punch was something out of a Marvel comic movie with Thanos, man. He was a stout dude. He's one of my greatest friends. I'm so glad that I've managed to get to know a guy like Wayne, but man, he was a combine. Like, those big combines that are out there? Yeah, like, he was a combine. That was a strong, strong dude. So he would be definitely up there. Who else? You know what? Josh Bork in Montreal, the tackle, he was a really strong, aggressive dude. And he was one of those mean dudes, right? That just wanted to kind of get out there. And Rob Murphy was the same way. But yeah, I think strongest would have to be Wayne Smith.
I love that you said
Who's the
Wayne
dirtiest
Smith, because
then?
he's also part of the greatest trade of Rider history. Just fleecing Hamilton, getting Wayne Smith and DJ Flick for,
Right.
what was it, Rocky Butler, I think was the trade. Like, that's
Yep.
Yeah, I think
unbelievable.
we sent Rocky Butler and a couple of slices of Sparky pizza, and it was. You're right. It worked out really well. Yeah.
You talk about the D ends a little bit. I'm curious about your thoughts on the Riders' defensive ends. Malik Carney, Shane Ray, obviously coming over from another NFL stint.
Yeah.
Penciled in as the starters, but you're going to have, Baldonado, Benoit Marion, others are probably going to get reps as well too.
Yeah.
Did the Riders do enough to address the defensive ends?
I think getting Scoop was Malik was really important. Malik started coming on this year. I'm going to be honest with you. When we got him from Hamilton, I wasn't too sure, right? Because when we got him from Hamilton, there was still a little bit of a void on both sides. And one of the things that you can see out of Malik is the respect that he has for the game. Everything's important to him. And I think that, yeah, he really came on, not just on the field, but as a leader in that locker room. Shane Ray, obviously the skill set is there, right? If you YouTube film on him, athlete, right? But again, health is always a factor. I always tell people, hey, if you want to master an ability in football, you make it dependability, right? Know your playbook and also be available, right? So dependability is the most important ability in football. And with a guy like Shane Ray, you really hope that, hey, this is the year that maybe he goes, but also now he's 30 plus, right? I'll tell you one guy who I'm really excited about making the next step. I think Baldonado, I think Haba really peaked last year. It was great to see because you saw him in camp, and to be honest, there wasn't a ton going on with him. He actually caused more trouble in camp as far as getting flags and stuff than he did actually. And as the season got on and they pressed him into action, I thought he was fantastic, and he's a quick learner. So that's a guy I really look to take that next step, I think, right? And then you have Marion is an exceptional find, I think. I know we've got Lake Corte Moore, right? Lake was hurt, but I think Marion's an under sort of valued asset in Saskatchewan at the moment. And if he continues to build, I thought he was great last year. So between Haba and Marion, and again, I know that it's been, the cool thing to do sometimes to question Jeremy O'Day's track record as the GM. But I honestly don't. People are running out of complaints, I think. And I think that if there's one thing that you can kind of trust, it's, hey, there's a little bit more time left until training camp. You might see another couple names. And if it's anything like the guys he found to play offensive line, right, and fill those spots, I think we're going to have a competitive camp, right? So, again, Baldonado, though, is a guy that I'm really excited about continuing to see. And is he a guy that maybe, at first is just in on those second down situations? That's fine. Keep guys fresh, right? I think that that's probably the biggest piece for the Riders is not necessarily the starting four, but how deep can you go in a game, right? Can you run 6 or 7 defensive linemen out there, right? And that helps you because then you have 3 extra defensive linemen as large, strong bodies for special teams.
Well, and that's it. With that rotation and that much talent, they can keep on rotating guys through. So are the days of the starting 4 gone?
I don't think the days of the starting 4 are gone because you compete to be a starter, period, right? You want the most reps. You want to be the guy in key moments. I do think, though, teams have started to understand how valuable, especially with the shrunken play clock and the way offenses are designed, specifically in the CFL. You guys, we're seeing a ton of effort to get to the sides of the field right away, quickly, right? Let's get to the sides of the field. Let's use the width of this field quickly. And for a D lineman, right, now you're running side to side consistently. So if a team manages to be lucky enough to put you in a bind where you're in a 12 to 13 play drive, especially running on this massive field, your guys are going to gas out. So I think that there's the teams that can actually utilize their depth, maybe play their 5th and 6th guys between the 35s so that their starters are fresh when it comes to those red zone defense and right, like those type of situations are if you can get guys in that rotation and spell certain other guys, you're going to be money. It's a long game, right? It's a long game.
I do have to ask, you were on the 2008 to 2010 team with Gary Etcheverry as defensive coordinator. There is one question looking back at that time that a lot of Rider fans have to ask and want to know, and you were in there in the middle of it. What was with Kitwana Jones at nose tackle in a Gary Etcheverry defense?
Yeah, so first of all, let me talk about Kit. I love Kit. Kit is probably what, 5'10", 220, right?
Yep.
Kit played at 7 foot 315. He was the toughest player I've ever seen. And more importantly, not just the toughest player. I'll never forget this. Zarka, we were sitting in the room. I think we had just beat BC. We were sitting in and having a crown, and we were talking about guys. And I remember Zark going like, dude, Kit, he just doesn't care about his body whatsoever. Like, you put Kit in anybody else's body, you have a Hall of Famer, but not in the CFL. You have a Hall of Famer in the NFL. That is how much respect and admiration I had for Kitwana Jones. The reason why he worked in the middle of a Gary Etcheverry defense is because one of the concepts that Gary Etcheverry, and this is a valid concept when you put it into practice, one of the things that Coach Etch wanted to do is he wanted to put as much pressure as he could on the middle three guys at times, right? So putting two guys on the center, what it did and the way we reacted to the block. So if the center came this way, what would happen is the guy on the side that the center went away from, he would just shoot down the gap. And more importantly, what the guy that the center came to would do was he would flip and go on the other side. What it would do was it would literally take two guys or three guys to block two. It would force them to focus on those two guys, and it would free up the linebackers or the end because of the way you were going. So again, if the center went that way, right, this guy would come right off the butt of that center, close down any space, right? And then the guy that the center went to would loop, and he would now be occupying that gap, right? So teams would have to account for that. And so we saw all sorts of things. But who better than Kitwana Jones? Tough SOB plus athletic and quick. It put teams in a massive bind. Now, the first thing obviously you do as an offensive lineman coach, where you say, okay, well, we're just going to root them out, right? We're just going to go 3-on-2 and push everybody that way. But schematically, you guys have seen plenty of playbooks. What playbook has 3-on-2, right, in the middle of the field, right, and at the snap of the ball? Which play in a playbook draws that up to where the three guys are just focusing on two? There isn't one, right? So you had to scheme your understanding of that. So that's why Kit worked in that, is he was the toughest guy on the field. He was one of the fastest, and it put offensive linemen, or at least that was conceptually, that's what Etch wanted to do. He wanted to put offensive lines in a bind and make the defense make the offense unsound to where there was gaps in it.
I do want to say it was not a knock on Kitwana Jones. I do have an autographed football of his like 10 feet away. I just remember growing up watching, you mentioned it, a 200-pound nose tackle in the middle of, where you're used to the bigger guys. It was just always interesting to see, but
oh man, he was, these kids these days, they throw out the word savage, and like Kit was a savage. Kit was an absolute savage, and the mentality that he had, it's what made him special. He was a great player at North Carolina, and he was great in the Canadian Football League, and he was unstoppable on special teams as well. And as you guys know, the more you could contribute on special teams, the longer you're going to play.
And it sure helps with the ends. You have John Chick, Stevie Baggs coming off the end. You have a guy like Mo Lloyd as well, too. Probably helps with that Etcheverry scheme as well, too, to have Kit in the middle there. Well,
one of the guys that really excelled, and you know what, Etch, I really appreciated about Etch is Etch Etch wasn't necessarily, and you know, there are guys that and I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, Etch is polarizing, right? Like you either loved him or hate him. One of the things that I really respected about Etch was that Etch took the guys that he had in the locker room and developed the scheme around that. Right. Some coaches you get and you know, you get into the locker room and hey, this is my scheme. Here's where I need you. How do I need you to be? And guys accelerated. Like, so for instance, the first year, I think Etch was our DC, full DC. We brought in Barron Simpson. You guys remember? And Barron had like 100 and something tackles, and his production was through the roof because of the point in his career he was in. I think the Riders got him at a discount, and he was phenomenal for us because Etch basically schemed all the action to eventually funnel into Barron Simpson, who was a solid one-on-one tackler. He wasn't asking Barron Simpson to cover, you know, east-west, right? Run right. He was asking him to just, hey, play your gap. Find where the alley's going to be and make the tackle. And the other guy that really excelled in Etch's defense, and I think if you ask him, he would credit Etch's creativity with him as a testament to why the NFL thought he was going to be a great player, was Jarrell Freeman. We put Jarrell Freeman in basically like, hey, like the ball's coming to you. You know, I'll give you an example. In 2010, guys, we had Jarrell, and we remember when we were playing the Calgary Stampeders. That year, they had an all-star team. Like literally, every one of their guys was a CFL all-star, and it pissed everybody off. And there weren't too many people giving us a chance because we were going to Calgary. But I remember the day before the game, and actually a little bit of the night, but like actually literally drew up one play, and this was after we had practiced all these other plays all week. Like we had literally, this was day before the game, day of the game. We walked down into the meeting and Etch had a new play drawn up. And when we looked at it, he was like, this is what we're going to run. And guys, we ran it 80, 90% of the game, right? Like, and this was a play that we hadn't repped at all during the week. And it was essentially funnel the play out to our most dependable guys, right? Jarrell had 16 tackles that game, and also made this game-saving special teams tackle when our idiot punt returner dropped the ball and damn near cost us the game, right? So yeah, I think that, you know, a lot of credit needs to go to Etch. He was a guy that you know, really put some thought into schemes, and I think that, yeah, you know, you got performances from guys like Kitwana Jones in the middle as a testament to that.
A really quick follow-up on that game that you're talking about, the West Final in Calgary there. I was at that one. That might have been the coldest game I've ever been at. You grew up, or you're born in New Zealand and moved to Canada, and I know that's quite a big culture shock. Was that the coldest you've ever been, was that game?
You know what the worst part about that game was? You're right, it was probably like minus 29, right? Yep. It was cold. I remember, I think it was Andy, but in the locker room, when you get there, everybody starts changing and starts, you know, going out and warming up, right? So naturally, you also, because it's so cold, one of the conversations became, hey, who's going sleeves, right? Like, who's wearing sleeves out there? It's freezing, right? So as we're in the locker room considering this, the defensive line and the offensive line, especially the O-line, if the Hoggies permit it, we're good to go sleeves. But the conversation gets to the point where it's like, okay, guys, we're wearing sleeves. Like, you know, if you want to wear sleeves in your balaclava, do so. As soon as we said that, yeah, it was definitely Fantus. Fantus walks into the damn dressing room after warming up and proclaims to everybody, no sleeves today, boys. Because, you know, I mean, you're not going to, the wide receivers now are not wearing sleeves, right? So there's a clip of me on the internet so I'm sacking Henry Burris in that game. And I'm not tackling him. I'm actually pulling him to the ground because I want him to land on the hard turf, right? I'm not like, and I don't want to cushion him because then it's going to hurt me. And I remember, guys, we would run a play, run off, get in front of the heater, and run back on before the play started. Like, That was crazy cold. But it was made worse because Twos wanted to proclaim himself that the wide receivers were wearing sleeves. It was ridiculous. Totally, it was bad. It was a bad call. We were freezing that game.
Okay, well, since we're talking receivers acting tough, let's talk about this year's receivers. Last week, Alex and I got in a little bit of disagreement about Keyshawn Johnson. Alex says he is already the number one. He is the guy. I'm like, we don't have a number one yet, but Keyshawn could be the guy. Where are we at with Keyshawn Johnson? I still think Emlis is number one.
I think Emlis is still on our roster, right, fellas?
Yeah.
So there's your number one guy. But I think that of all the receivers, including Emlis, I think that Keyshawn's probably got the chance to be the most productive guy on the roster. I agree with Alex. I think he's a stud. I think that one of the things about Keyshawn is and this is we have to the nice part is he came and caught on to the game really quick. And it wasn't one of those deals where they were just like, hey, you're an American receiver, go catch a jump ball. When he was most productive, he was involved in the offense in the possession downs. Him and Trevor Harris really established a nice little relationship. I thought that they had a great sort of, they were in tune with each other. And it showed in the downs, in the critical possession downs. Harris was going to Keyshawn at the end of the year. I think that a second year in the CFL and the second year in a Mark Mueller offense, especially for Mueller, who can now say, okay, well, here's what I know I have. I think Keyshawn's got the world ahead of him. I think it's going to be a big year for him if he stays healthy. And I think one of the reasons why it's going to be a big year for him is because you can't actually just zero in and focus on him because you've got guys like Emlis out there. I think that you've got other dangerous receivers that are going to come into play. But yeah, I'm with you, Alex. I think that Keyshawn is going to be the guy at the end of the day, especially when it comes to those possession things. Not saying you're wrong, Greg, but you're wrong. Yeah.
The checks in the mail there, Luke. Appreciate that. And it was phrased. It was who's going to have a breakout season, and I said it was going to be Dante Myers.
That was funny. That was another guy I was about to say. Dante Myers too. I mean, there's a guy potentially, and you know he's going to be on the roster because he can return kicks too, right? So I think that between him and you know, hey, listen, like it is what it is. The last 2 years, one of the things that Jo has gone and done is found a good receiver in the draft too, right? So you might see another addition on draft day, depending on sort of where Jo and that staff deem to have a gap on the Canadian side of the ball.
Now, speaking of the receiving core as a whole, there were a lot of fans calling for the team to go out and get a number one, like a Eugene Lewis or a Kenny Lawler, that standout number one in the CFL. Do you think they played it right and stuck with the room that they've got, or?
Totally. Yeah. I think that it's better to have, you know, a number of good players, right? Or that are bordering on great than it is to have one great guy surrounded by guys who have resigned themselves to the supporting role. I think that there's equity in this offense, right? That's the opportunity. I think there's going to be some equity available for these wide receivers. You're going to be able to, and Trevor Harris, again, he's a guy when he's at his highest point and most successful, he's a guy who spreads the ball around, but also spreads it around quickly, right, guys? And then will absolutely kill you if you start overplaying your hand, and then he hits you deep. So, I think we're in a good spot.
So that just goes on. We had Corey Mace on to begin the year in January, but obviously continuity, and the team has been preaching it all off season.
Yeah. The more you can bring your core in, guys, the better off you're going to be. You know, the success of the 2017 was because a lot of the guys were on that team, but we added key positions, but we added them around the core. The 2008 team, outside of the quarterback position that should have started and ended with Darian Durant, that team was actually probably better than the 2017. That team should have gone a lot farther than we got. We were a massive, but we had the wrong quarterback, and we didn't give Durant his flowers early enough. 2009, 2010, same team. same thing, guys. We were a core driven team, right? And when you look at the success of the 2013 and what would have been probably a repeat in 2014 had Durant not got hurt, again, that was great pieces being brought in, but around the core players. Now your core players are going to switch. Sometimes they're going to be, trench guys. There's going to be a few wide receivers, but anytime, like Steven was talking about, anytime you're able to bring back your core guys, that locker room that contributes, that understands the culture, that understands the expectation, that understands, the positions that you're going to be in throughout a game, especially, depending on whether that game's a game 1 or a game 18 or a playoff game, right? Those are the winning teams. I mean, look at the Super Bowl, right? Look at the Eagles, right? One of their things that they've been managed to get back to that Super Bowl is, Travis Kelce gone, but hey, you know what? Lane Johnson, Mailata was still there, and Jalen Hurts was still there. They had core guys on defense that they relied on that had been there for a while. They kept Brandon Graham around for literally to have 12 plays, I think. But it's a core guy who understands what is needed to get there and have success in a big game.
You've alluded to the draft. Jo looking for possibly another receiver because he's been really good at doing it. But the combines before that here in Regina. So you went through that process.
Yeah.
We love hearing stories from players who've gone through the process. Interviews. What is that like? And what was probably the most ridiculous question you got? Because we've heard there's some doozies out there.
Yeah, I was asked when I had my and by the way, this was back when they were still kind of developing the combine, right? One of my strategies actually was just when I sat down with a guy who was he was young and he was becoming an agent and me and him connected and we were like, well, shoot, we're two guys that are trying our hand at this, and he was like, what do you think about just sort of going up to the combine and, competing in the one-on-ones there and sort of letting your reputation stand from there. And I'm like, you know what? Sounds like a good idea. So we went to Ottawa, but more importantly, when we got there, I remember being asked by a couple teams, hey, do you even want to do this? Right. Because we talked to your coaches, you don't seem like a guy who's that interested in continuing football. Right. You know what I mean? And I really wasn't at that point. I was kind of in this space where I was like, long story short, I had a long talk with my dad about what I was going to do after college, right? And he told me a story because we're from New Zealand, right? He told me a rugby story about him and where some of his regrets in life were, when it came to our family and moving to Canada, right? And related to the All Blacks. But anyway, so I was kind of doing it for him, right? And hey, he was right. I don't want to regret anything. If I try and I fail, who cares? If I try, I don't like it, who cares? At least I did it. You know what I mean? I can. So yeah, I think that they probably, they probably get pretty, they're probably different these days, right? I would, if I was a GM, I would already have done the footwork on the kid that I was talking to. And that footwork is, what type of leader is he in the locker room, right? Is he a high character guy, and is he going to be able to get our playbook, right? Is he going to be able to get a pro playbook, and I think that in the Canadian draft, if those three are there, you're also able to sit and say, okay, you know what? We're willing to be patient. They were going to have to be patient with me. You have to be willing to be patient in the Canadian Football League. It is a developmental draft. I don't care whether you're drafted first overall. I don't care whether you're drafted dead last. You're not that far apart. You're going to need some development, right? I mean, look at who's last year's first rounder. It was the kid from Edmonton, right? Or that,
yep.
He went to Edmonton. He's the linebacker. Didn't see that many snaps this year, right? Was always on the roster. I saw him always on the roster, but that was our first round pick, linebacker, right? He's probably DeBlanco. That's who it was, right? And who knows where he stands right now with that new regime, right? You guys have seen it all the time. There's been plenty of guys who have been drafted in that 1 through 5 spot that never see the field, right? It's a developmental draft. You have to be able to have patience. And if I'm a GM, if I'm going to have patience, I want to know that the guy has the other intangibles: high effort player, high character guy, great in the locker room.
Okay, well let's play GM here then. So you're GM of the Riders this year going into the 2025 draft. Is there something specific they should be going after in terms of a positional need, or is it just bring in the best guys you can?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like, and I don't have the roster in front of me. I probably should have. That would have been a wise decision. But I think that I don't know if you're going to have the initial ratio flexibility that they had last year right off the bat. I remember like you could literally play an American anywhere last year because you had ratio flexibility. Like for instance, I know that not CJ Revis, CJ Avery, for instance, he's on our roster. In my mind, I want to get that guy on the field. Like literally, he's like I want to, and it's probably weak side linebacker. I know I'm gonna have CJ Revis playing, and I know I've got my middle linebacker set. So really, does that position even exist as a Canadian position? Probably not if you really like CJ Avery, right? So, and that was a Canadian position over the last 2 years, right? So I don't know. For me, I always look at O-line, right? I want to find O-linemen that can play because despite, and this is why J.O. needs more credit than he got last year, despite their ability to find guys and get them in the game, O-linemen are not in droves, guys. The good ones are on a team, they're on a roster. They're not just lying around waiting for jobs. It's not like that. D-linemen maybe, but there is not just a plethora of offensive linemen waiting to be signed. Then that's what made J.O.'s and specifically Edwin Harrison such a success last year, was the fact that they got all those guys playing. So me, I'm always looking at offensive linemen. I'm always looking at potential D linemen, maybe this year especially because you don't have, like, you've got Lake Corte Moore, you've got Marion, you've got Charbel, but all of those guys were in and out last year. We only saw a little bit of Marion at the end of last year. Charbel was hurt most of the year, right? Lake Corte Moore went down at the end of the year. You don't know where he is in the offseason. So I think that if you're looking at offensive line, if there's a stud available at the defensive line, and again, because of your ratio, you might be able to be a little bit more patient, right? And then from there, I think you just go best available. Period. I think that we've got potentially a Canadian field cornerback in Tavon Campbell and a backup there, but I think that, again, you're primarily going into those drafts looking to be patient, and if you do fill a need, great. But I'm completely okay. Like last year, J.O. took a little. The Riders took a little bit of slack for drafting Kyle Hergill. Why wouldn't he? Kyle Hergill was the best offensive lineman available at the moment, and he went to the Saints that had like 10 guards on the roster. Like that, actually, I'm okay with playing those odds in a developmental draft. You know what I mean? He could have drafted somebody else who actually came to the team and never played it down. It would have been the same thing.
So we've looked at the beginning of the season with the combine, where the Riders need to fix. Let's take a look. Let's jump ahead in our time machines. Look at the end of the year. Maybe we get a way too early prediction from Luc Mullinder. How do the 2025 Saskatchewan Roughriders do, and are they playing in that final game in Winnipeg?
Yeah, I've said this. I do think that they're playing in the final game. I really do. I think that there's a number of factors. Again, we talked about the coaches and the front office being back. We talked about the fact that they really focused internally on getting the guys they wanted back in the locker room. Now, guys, every this is prefaced by they've got to stay healthy, but that's every single team, right? Every single team has to stay healthy, so that's no longer. So I think that they've made some really good decisions in terms of your internal re-signings, and also they've gone out and got guys that really suit the need. I mean, Mike Rose that was a fantastic signing. Sean McEwen is probably one of my favorite offensive linemen in the league. I've really we used to really get into like heavy note taking and stuff during the draft in my role on the sports cage a long time ago. And I remember when we were doing that, there's a couple guys that have always stuck out in my mind that from really studying the availabilities of those past drafts. Actually, 4 guys. One was Nick Dembski, one was Suk Chung, one was Michael Couture, and one was Sean McEwen. Like literally, those guys really always stood out. So I think that was a fantastic get. And again, you're going to win the game in the trenches, right? So I think with all that, and then you consider the fact that they have a bye week literally every 5 weeks. Like the bye weeks have worked out for them. And this is a testament So this is a testament, and I don't think that a lot of teams are happy about this, by the way, but it's a testament to Craig Reynolds and his development of his relationship with Randy Ambrosie, because it's clear that Reynolds went into Randy and been like, dude, Thursday at 6 p.m., really? Like, look at how many Thursday games we had last year, right? This year, Friday, this year, Saturday, right? And again, you're able to potentially look at it. You don't have those long 12-game stretches where you have, no bye week. So again, everything's kind of pointed in their favor at the moment. So they've got to go out, they've got to execute, and they've got to have a lot of. But again, if I was to make a way too early prediction, I would definitely say that I would take the favorites to be competing for the West in the Grey Cup would be the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
All right. Well, we have some other questions for you besides just about this Riders team. And I want to know, as a kid from New Zealand moving to Canada, what got you into football in the first place? Was it obviously with rugby? And were you always a D lineman growing up?
No, I was a receiver when I played football, and I only started playing football because I kept getting in trouble and I was going to get kicked out of school. Right? I was a basketball player, man. I was a basketball player, and I played a lot of hockey. And football was something that was decided for me in terms of what I was going to do, because it's I needed to be preoccupied in school. So when I first started out, I played receiver, and I literally had one play. I would line up in the slot. I would run, pretend I was going to run deep, and I would turn around. They'd throw me the ball, and I try to run through guys, right? So that's what that's what got me down to Michigan State. I only played a couple years organized football, then went down to Michigan State because of some of the things I did there, and ended up switching over to defense. And but football was never in the car. I was always a huge football fan. Like, I was always a Dallas Cowboys guy. I back then it was.
I'm sorry about that.
Trust me, don't worry about it, man. We're over it now. Unfortunately, you're just resigned to just watching them toil in mediocrity for the rest of at least until Jerry Jones decides to relinquish his grasp on there. But I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are a good example of the business of sport, right? Like, why would Jerry care about winning Super Bowls? The Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable franchise in all of sports. Who cares about Super Bowls, right? Let's just keep ourselves in the media. Anyways, so I was a massive football, but honestly, guys, I was really more into basketball and hockey. But I remember we played in the district final my senior year basketball, and this is where the decision was kind of made to focus on football, is because when we were warming up, I noticed my dad and my basketball coach at the time, Mr. Yusufoj, they were actually sitting in the stands and talking, and I've never seen it before, right? My dad was always sort of a guy that kind of snuck into the gym, stayed out to the side. But after that game, we lost. I remember I played a decent game, not my best, but I played a decent game. We ended up losing, and on the way back, my dad said, "Hey, you've got some scholarship offers here. And I was fortunate enough to have basketball offers and football offers." And he said that my dad said, "Well, I was talking to Mr. Yusufoj, and he thinks that you'd be a decent player at the collegiate level if you chose one of your basketball scholarships, right? But he also thinks that you might have a chance to make some money playing football." Well, I was decided. I'm out. You know what I mean? Football it is, boys. Yeah, let's go. Right. So that was the journey for me, man. It wasn't necessarily out of love. It was just out of, hey, I wanted to stay out of trouble, and then eventually lucked out and got good at
it. So did you actually have like a football idol growing up, or you were just a Cowboys fan and loved that era of the boys?
I was a Cowboys guy, man. Yeah, I was a Cowboys guy through and through. We had Polynesians on the team at the time, like Mark Tuanay. I was a huge Jay Novacek fan. I'm the biggest fan of Troy Aikman. I think that, that guy. I've got the only jersey I have outside of any of my jerseys is a Troy Aikman jersey. I don't collect jerseys. I don't, you know what I mean? I need to start, like, for instance, like that setup you've got in the back there, Alex. Like, I need to like have some. All you guys have jerseys in there. Those are dope, right? Like, I've always wanted to start a collection, but the one guy is Aikman. So I was always a Cowboys guy. Loved Michael Irving. Obviously, Emmitt Smith was out there balling, but man, Charles Haley, Derek Kennard, we had some dogs playing for Dallas, man. I remember when Dion played for the Cowboys. That was the most entertaining run ever. But yeah, and it's never, what has it been, since '96? Now we're watching Philadelphia win. You know what I mean? Like, this is the worst. Yeah.
Philadelphia versus Washington. How much that hurt your soul?
You know what? I don't feel the pain anymore, man, because I'm just used to being hurt now. You know, I'm that guy. I'm like, you know, it's never going to happen. And now I get to watch all the other teams in the NFC East be better than us. And it's a tough realization, man. You know what? You gotta, and I used to, the worst part is, guys, I used to like laugh at like my buddies who were like Cleveland Browns fans, you know, guys who were like even Commanders fans. I was like, you know, but now I'm one of those guys, man. I'm loyal to a team that's never going to do anything.
I got to tell you personally, my favorite Cowboys story. I was on a cruise ship last year at the beginning of January as a Packers fan, sitting in a bar that was filled with Cowboys fans and me in my Packers jersey, and got to watch that playoff game that I'm sure you don't want to remember.
The one where you guys just started and never stopped.
Yeah, and it was loud the entire game. Or like the entire warm up, everybody was excited. I'm just sitting there like, whatever. Let's see how it goes. And you could just collectively watch it get quieter and quieter. Yeah. And it was dead silent except for me and one other Packers fan on the other side of this bar on the middle of the cruise ship in the ocean. And it was fantastic. And I didn't think I would make it out alive. Yeah. Given our surroundings, but we did.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. You're used to seeing. You're kind of used to, like, the Packers at least have a hope, right? But like, you know, I remember watching Gilbert Brown, Reggie White, you know, like guys who were Mark Chmura. You remember him, Mark Chmura, the big tight end? Like, man, Green Bay used to be such a good team. I've been through that though, man. I remember this most recent World Cup. It was the first World Cup that New Zealand was in, and we were in the final, and I was actually in Saskatchewan for it. And my buddy took me to one of the local breweries that was, and literally there was 2 All Blacks fans, myself, who's from New Zealand, and this nice older lady who was associated with New Zealand somehow, and then the rest of the bar was South Africans. And you know, that it was a really fun game, but I was on the losing end of that one, and we deserved to lose that game. And I just remember, like, literally being like, man, F all these guys. Like, you know, like, it's just, you know, like, yeah, this is the worst. So yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's what everybody said about me and the one guy at the bar.
Yeah, they didn't want me there, that's for sure. Yeah, they were like, well, who's this guy? You know, and when we were doing the haka and stuff, I was kind of getting into it, you know, like, oh, hey, you know, like that's my home, you know what I mean? And yeah, so I was getting on, and they were kind of looking at me like, who invited this guy, you know?
Luke, one thing I've heard about you is that you're a big potluck guy. I was supposed to ask you, and this is Barney, host of the Sports Cage, saying, what should you bring and what should you not bring to a potluck?
Well, first of all, don't ever bring, if you want to ingratiate yourself to your staff and your team, there's 3 things you never do at a potluck. Bring soup, bring salad, bring buns. Don't ever do that. Don't be that person. You got to bring something substantial. What you always know about potlucks is there's going to be some cultural variety there, right? One of the things I love about our Red Cross office in Regina is Mary Lou, who's Filipino. Oh, man, every time we have a potluck, I'm like, you make sure Mary Lou knows and she's invited, right? Because Mary Lou's going to bring us some Filipino dishes that are incredible. You know, so you're always going to get some cultural things. Someone is always going to bring a dessert, right? Like, but you have to kind of like throw a hint for desserts, because there's always one person that really does dessert well. So when you're organizing the potluck, guys, you got to kind of be like, oh man, so hey, Rachel, are you going to bring your blah, 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 right? And like, you have to make sure that everybody kind of knows, hey, don't screw up and bring a dessert because we want Rachel's dessert. So, and then you got to go for impact, you know? Like one of the things that I like doing is I go to one of the establishments, Auntie Maggie's, one of my favorite places in Regina. I bought a ton of beef patties the last time. I cut them in half, you know, put the beef patties out. You know, I'm new. So one of the things I do, guys, is I lead Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Nunavut for the Canadian Red Cross. And I was the first time we had a potluck as the new vice president of Manitoba. I was like, oh, this is a high pressure situation, right? Like I can't show up and just, step off the plane and not bring anything. But if I'm going to bring something, it's got to. So you know what I did? I went and got cheeseburgers, a ton of cheeseburgers. McDonald's, just cut them right in half, put them out. They were gone. They were the only thing that didn't last. It was awesome. So you got to, go-tos, guys, bucket of KFC, right? Some cheeseburgers, some beef patties, right? If you really want to impress people, you know what you do? You lie and you go to Safeway and you buy their fried chicken that they have. And you also, when you're at Safeway, you buy the aluminum tins, take the wings and fried chicken out of the case they're in, put them in the aluminum foil, bring it, and literally walk in there and be like, oh man, guys, I can't believe I pulled this off. I just need to warm my my fried chicken up and it should be good. Yeah. And then you're like a god, you're like, then you're always invited back.
I'm doing two things. I'm bringing Dairy Queen, especially some blizzards, but also calling up Belton. I'm calling up Belton Johnson and saying, man, bring me some brisket or something.
Dude, so Belton is an SGI. Can you imagine how lucky and how good their potlucks are? Like, it's not, like it's a cheat code, man. Like it's BS. Like he shouldn't be able to, like, if I was, I would actually ban potlucks if I was working with Belton. I would just pay Belton the money. I would be like, look, everybody kick in $10. Belton's going to make us lunch. You know what I mean? Like that would be what I would do, right? Screw the potluck, man. Dude, you have all of this. You know what I mean? Let us know. Do we need to? We'll bring salad and buns. Right?
Yeah, we'll bring the buns.
Take care of the good stuff. Yeah.
Somebody needs to put you in charge of staffing somewhere to make that happen. I want to work wherever that is.
That's what I think that the only reason my staff like me in the Red Cross is because I'm a huge potluck guy, and we always make sure we have those.
So you don't want Steve rolling in with a Hawaiian pizza?
What?
You don't want Steve rolling in with a Hawaiian pizza?
Oh, guys. Just,
what's wrong with it?
It's just pineapple doesn't belong on pizza, Steve. Like it's not something that belongs on pizza. Look at this. This is a pineapple water bottle. You know what it's not doing? It's not sitting on a pizza. Like it's a fruit and it's a dessert, Steve.
There are two places that pineapple absolutely belong: on pizza and in chili.
Chili?
What?
Try it.
That one. You lost me on that one.
If you have never tried it, try it before you knock it. It is the perfect little bit of sweet to the spice in a chili. You'll never make chili without it again.
That is obscene. that is a ridiculous statement. You should. No, pineapple is good in like fruit salad, on like pavlova, a Maori dish in New Zealand, there's put it on a pig, right? Like, but don't put it on a pig with pizza. Like, don't do that. It's not, And I get pretty passionate about this now, guys. As a matter of fact, back when we were canceling people on Twitter, I remember that I literally made a joke, or what I thought was a joke, and said, hey, people who put pineapple on pizza, they should be subject to an allergic reaction, like people who are allergic to beans. I thought I was being funny at the time. Nope. Just bing, 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 bing. All the ats just calling me a complete, moron. And I can't believe that this guy has a job that, you know what I mean? Like, man, they were killing me for it. But like, I'm pretty passionate about the no pineapple on pizza rule, guys.
It's okay to be wrong about certain things. And this time,
Fair.
You got your football team, and apparently you're tasting pineapple. Everything else, you're pretty good.
I'm telling you, man, I can't think of one time where I've enjoyed pineapple on pizza. I'm the guy who picks it all off, and you know what I do? I make a statement. You know what I do? I not only do I pick it off and put it on my plate, I then take it back over and pull it in a gap that is vacated by someone taking a slice. I just dump it all back in that spot and be like, this should have been left here. Take that.
And I'd be the guy coming in and picking that pineapple up and adding to it. Hey, everybody wins.
So we'd be pretty efficient then. You and I
I
would
think
be pretty
so.
efficient in a
Yeah.
buffet. I could just like, here, you take the pineapple, I'd fork it off, and I'll take the rest of it, you know? And
Win-win.
you know what the other thing is, guys? And listen, you know, take this don't look, if you're a vegan, we get it. You're a vegan. Just present your dish and shut up. Don't present it and give us a dissertation on why you have it and whose lives it saved and you know and how ethical it was to make this dish. If you're vegan and you're at the potluck, just humbly place your plate there and say, "Hi guys, here you go," and shut up. You know, that's the other thing. Because, you know, I mean, shoot, if vegan, I always question vegans, guys. I always say, like, you know, if you guys care about the animals so much, how come you're always eating all their food, right? That's the question I have for vegans. But they always seem to go way too far beyond in their explanation of things, you know? So nobody wants to hear you. We all know you're vegan. Look, Sue, we get it. You've been vegan for a long time, and you tell us every day you're vegan. You don't need to explain it again at the potluck.
Last one for you, Luke, because I know your time is valuable and it's almost my bedtime now.
Me too, man. Originally, I can't remember which one of you guys told me. You guys filmed this at 9?
Sometimes it's like
9 o'clock.
9:30 we'll start. Yeah.
Those guys are complete savages, man. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, and I'm the one editing it till midnight.
Yeah.
hey, someone's got to make the sacrifice, Greg.
Last one, November 25th, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
A date very near and dear to you, I know. The Grey Cup in Toronto.
Yeah.
Riders win. After the celebration was done, because you were, it was Mississauga you grew up in.
Yeah.
After the celebration, after the celebration was done in the locker room, what did Luc Mullinder do for the after party?
So I listen, and that's one of the things about winning Grey Cups is that I couldn't tell you what I spent my check on in that offseason, but I could tell you literally minute by minute of what transpired that offseason with as a Grey Cup champion. So first things first, we had this little shindig that was thrown by the organization that just sort of brought everybody together. So we got there, you know, everybody took their picks, and I was surrounded by my boys, right? I bought tickets for my boys, so they had come to the Grey Cup. My mom and dad, they were separated, so neither one of them really spent a lot of time at the actual Grey Cup celebration. The first thing I did when we won is I went and looked for my mom. I gave her a big hug. But yeah, so we went to the team party. We ate. We had a few drinks, and then I called up my buddy who owns a club who owned a club downtown, and me and my boys went straight there, and from there. We just did our thing. I didn't sleep a wink that whole day, that whole night. After that, we got on the bus and everybody was still partying. I remember KJ, man. He had just won that most outstanding player, and we were so happy for him, man, because he had just had such a great year, and it really was the culmination of the leadership that he brought. Like to this day, there's a couple people I'd run through the wall for: Carey, Joseph, and Jo. Right? Like Jo was was an incredible leader on the field as well. But I remember Jo, even Carey got on the bus, and he was known as the guy who like did things right. You know, wasn't out doing it with the fellas. But he got on the bus, and he said, he was like, "Tonight, fellas, I'm having a glass of wine." And I was like, "Yeah," you know. And yeah, we didn't sleep, and then so we took the bus. We got back to Regina and we ran out. And I remember there was people waiting at the airport. We were celebrating at the airport. And then we went straight to Mosaic Stadium. It was probably minus 150. We were freezing, but man, by then we were numb because of the drinks we'd been having. And it was just, honestly, guys, it was the greatest. It was the greatest couple of days of my life, man. And, just from, that's what you do. You know, you work your whole life and you don't know it, right? You don't know how passionate you actually are about sports when you're in this position, right? Like you don't really think that you've like sacrificed a lot, right? You don't think about the long days in the weight room and all that stuff. And man, yeah, just to culminate it, it's one of the things that I actually struggled with after I retired. I struggled with the fact that for all my life, there was always something to compete for. Whether it was a roster spot, whether it was, and you know, as part of a team, there was a championship at the end of the tunnel. You were competing for a championship, and if you weren't successful, you just started again, competing for that championship. And when I first got out, I remember like the people who were winning in life, they were like, oh yeah, you know, so and so has a house in Hawaii and 3 cars, and I'm like, damn, you know, like that's cool, but that was the win then in real life, and I was like, I don't relate to any of that. You know what I mean? It was one of the things that I actually struggled with is finding things to be really passionate about and compete about. But fortunately for me, I realized eventually after long conversations with family and stuff that it was actually helping the community that I was really passionate about. And that's kind of what brought me back to the Canadian Red Cross a long time ago. So yeah, but man, I could literally, if you guys had another hour and a half, I could literally give you a minute by minute on what happened. I know where all the pictures are. I remember the pictures we took. It was such a great time, man.
Well, I'm sure there's some stories you probably can't tell.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. You've got to have a Piffles podcast X for the real stories, fellas. I'll tell them when I see you guys. But yeah.
Well, when that book is ready to get written, we'll bring you back on. Let's hear those stories, because it's been almost 20 years now. Like time has passed. I think you can name drop a couple things.
Nah, man, it's like Vegas, brother. What happens in the Grey Cup Championship stays in the Grey Cup Championship.
Luke, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Can't wait to see what kind of content you have for us coming up in training camp.
No, you know what? Hey, thank you guys, man. I think that you know, you guys are such great advocates for the game. I think that, you know, one of the steps the league can take is really putting a little energy into the fan-based podcasts like this one and the other ones. You know, no matter which side of the fence we fall on, it's like politics, right? Like at the end of the day, we just want the league to grow, you know, and I think that you guys are doing such a great job. So kudos to you. Keep it up, man. And you know, whenever you think I can be a help, or your number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 selection bails on you, I'm there.
Well, we'll see what Chunky's doing, but after that, you can be.
Oh, he's definitely bailing on you. Chunky will set up, he'll commit to something, and then he'll call you the day before. He's out. Yeah.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Cheers.
Luc Mullinder there. Wow, that was probably our best opening kickoff we've ever had. That was awesome.
That was. I love talking to Luke. I've been fortunate enough to talk to him a few times on Sports Cage. He's awesome to have. He's a great dude.
I love the explanation of Kitwana Jones as a nose tackle. He made it make sense. How many years of watching football, never understood it? 2 minutes with Luc Mullinder.
Yeah, this many years. We should have asked this 15 years ago. Well, that's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Feston of Royal LePage Regina Realty, taking up almost all our
Kathy got her money's worth this week.
We sure did, yes. Let's get to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. There was actually some rider news, and we'll get to it really, really quick here. They signed a couple defensive backs, Mark Webb, Leon Jones, a couple guys who spent time in the NFL. So maybe what we were thinking of with Tavon Campbell being a lock at corner, I mean, maybe not.
I find that hard not to, because Luke alluded to it. They probably want to run 3 American linebackers, so you got to make up that Canadian spot somewhere. So I still think Tavon is probably the play there, but I guess it's going to see what happens when training camp starts.
Honestly, after Damon Webb, I'm good with anybody with the last name Webb coming in and trying out a defensive back. You know, what we do know is he'll get cut here, go somewhere else, and become an all-star.
Yeah, become an all-star in Ottawa and then move on that year.
Yep.
Where'd he go? Calgary?
Yep.
Is that where Damon Webb went? Yeah.
Yeah, went to Calgary.
And a couple other things. Well, first off, the Banjo Bowl bus trip presented by Engelheim Tours and District 306, Regina's Tactical Laser Tech Experience, is a go. So we have everything in place. You want to go to Winnipeg nobody really wants to go to Winnipeg.
And we're doing 2 nights on purpose.
Yeah, 2 nights. We're going up on Friday, staying obviously for Saturday, coming back on Sunday.
No more 3 a.m. wake up call. That's
the only bonus. That's the biggest bonus right there.
Oh, that's another day of ShawarmaCon, actually. Maybe there's 2 bonuses. But a game the Riders probably should have won last year, the Banjo Bowl, should be another good one again this year. If these teams kind of line up the way that we're almost expecting them to, it should be a good one. $425. 2 nights hotel gets you tickets to the game, to and from. We got a whole bunch of prizes on the way. We got some now. We're going to get some later. It's going to be a blast. If you're thinking about going, you know where to find us. We're on social media. Shoot us a message. Piffles Podcast. Just send us an email as well to pifflespodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to talk Banjo Bowl bus trip with you. We should really hire some people for testimonies. Maybe that'll sell it. But the bus already is a third sold out already, which is awesome. And the $425 price is the early bird price that goes until May 11th. Goes up to $450 after that, of course, based on double occupancy. All we require is $100 deposit per occupant, and let's get you on the list and go to Winnipeg. That trip is such a blast, and that's even after waking up at 2 a.m. to round everybody up and get going.
Or if you're me, not going to sleep at all, working the night before.
Yeah,
I'm so glad I don't have to do that this year. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am for that.
You're
No
gonna be so
3 a.m.
overtired.
wake up call. Oh, it'll still happen.
So, Banjo Bowl bus trip presented by Engelheim Tours and District 306, Regina's tactical laser tag experience is a go. So, if you want to go, let us know. That should be in the slogan. If you want to go, let us know. It
good.
rhymes. Yeah. And actually, speaking of District 306, Regina's tactical laser tag experience, we'd like to officially welcome them as a sponsor of the show. And Greg, you are going to have the new segment. Remember that guy?
Yep. Brought to you by District 306.
That's right. They're bringing that to us starting next week. So get your smarty pants hats on, and I can't wait to see what obscure rider names you come up with for Steve.
I don't know if I should start off easy or make it hard on you guys to start with. I can't decide on how I want to play.
We should almost have like a practice one that's stupid easy. Like, hey, he wore number 4, won a Grey Cup, and then went to Montreal. Oh, okay, yeah, it's Darian Durant.
I'm not making it that easy.
Okay, well, that's the easy one, but I can't wait to see what you bring up. How many Colorado School of Mines quarterbacks have the Riders ever had?
It's funny. I sent someone the graphic that I made for it, and they actually found a guy named Guy. It's like, is this going to be the answer every week? I'm like, no, but at some
You mean
point, it might
Mark
be.
guy?
Yeah.
He's not a remember that guy. That guy's a legend here in Saskatchewan. I don't care what anybody says.
1989 Grey Cup doesn't happen without him.
No, those catches on that last drive, unbelievable. And one other thing, and again, we do want to welcome Engelheim Tours as well too. We've been doing the bus trip with Engelheim, but they're gonna make it a little bit easier for us and hopefully get some more prizes and whatnot with them. So should be a hell of a time to Winnipeg. It always is, and even games where we're getting blown out, we still have a great time. So
just don't get stuck in the concourse.
Yes.
And nobody from our group is allowed to play bubble soccer.
Yeah, our waiver doesn't cover that. And one other thing, CFL Fans Fight Cancer kickoff event. It's kind of a CFL summit across the country this Saturday, March 8th at the Serb Club in Regina, just on Avonhurst Drive, 6 p.m. Raising money to fight cancer. And it's going to CFL Fans Fight Cancer, which every year goes local to the city that's hosting the Grey Cup. So it's going to Winnipeg this year. I should have wrote down who they're going to. Unfortunately, I didn't. I'll make that my homework for next week. But it's a great cause. Last year was $70,000. We crushed the record a couple years ago in 2022 at $24,000 or whatever it was. And now they're hitting 70K. So it's a year-long thing, and it's awesome. It's one of the best things about being part of the CFL family is this is something that brings everybody together. And this is all one common enemy like everybody has with Chad Kelly, right? So this is, but it's for everybody. So this is great. So if you want to show up to that, bring some cash. I'm sure there'll be some prizes and whatnot going on there.
How much money would CFL Fans Fight Chad Kelly raise, you think?
Oh, wow. I almost guarantee Laura from Hamilton any disposable income she has would go to that.
Oh, there's quite a few that would probably be there with him, with
Yeah.
her.
The more I think about it, the more a lot of them are in Hamilton.
Yeah. At least top 3, top 5, off the top of my head, probably. Well, Tara's probably in there. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
3 or 4 for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you can make it this Saturday, 6 p.m. Serb Club, that's when it starts. Obviously, you can show up a little bit later as well too. But I'll be there, so come say hi, and we'll just get ready for the CFL season. And they're doing it in, I think it's 7 CFL cities across the country.
Yep.
Are hosting. Might even be 8 actually. But it's for a great cause. So if you can make it, would love to see you out there. But that's our time this week. Luc Mullinder took almost all of it, and it was awesome. So
And
thanks
I would
again.
I would do it twice as much if we could.
Oh man,
Tons.
I want to get those
All-
minute by minute Grey Cup stories. That's what I want next time.
He took up most of the show, and I'm pretty sure all of our fan absolutely love it.
Well, that's been the Piffles podcast. Of course, it's brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks, of course, as well to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty, Churchill Brewing Company, and District 306, Regina's tactical laser tag experience, for their support making the show possible. Thanks for watching on YouTube, SaskTel Max TV on demand, or listening wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and this one as well. This is Ghost Behind Your Mind by Tyler Gilbert.
The ghost behind your